Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Fish, and it's patch note time in Minion Masters. So we're going to go through the patch notes and see what new stuff we're going to be expecting. So, let's remind ourselves, we're currently in the Torment expansion. So the way the expansion works in Minion Masters is they last for 3 months with monthly patches. This is going to be the third and final of those monthly patches. This is going to be called Techsplosion, and it's going to be version 1.42. This is dropping Thursday the 8th of December. We're going to have new cards, a new skin, it's a cracker. We're also going to have some balance changes, of course, and some bug fixes. Let's check out the new cards. Okay, so the first new card that we have, you may have seen this teased within the game, in the news. We've got the Magnetic Bombs. Okay, so the Magnetic Bombs, this is going to be available at tier 49 in the free pass, or immediately at tier 1 if you go for the season pass. But what do the Magnetic Bombs do? Okay, so they're technically a minion. They're a 4 mana Outlander minion. You get 4 of them, and you spawn them in the same way that you spawn a puff, i.e. you spawn it at your tower, but you can control whereabouts it's going to be on your tower. But what do? Well, these will roll from your master tower and attach themselves to the nearest minion and explode after a delay. If there's no minions, they'll go all the way through to face, and if they attach themselves to a minion and the minion dies, then the bomb will just drop on the ground and still explode. So, as mentioned, there's 4 of them. They have 50 HP, they do 80 damage each, and when they explode, they have a small AoE radius. So if you can roll all 4 of them into a cluster of some units, remember you can only attach 1 per minion, then you can potentially do a lot of damage. Also, interestingly here, it says they hit ground and air. That could be important. And their attack type is special, so they probably can't be raged from Volko and things like that. Okay, so that's Magnetic Bombs, and this is what they'll look like. So just a reminder, you can spawn them at the tower like a puff. You can split them, or you can send them all down one lane. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Magnetic Bombs. And of course, we have a second card as well to check out, and this one is called the Siege Breaker Mark 1. But what is the Siege Breaker? Looks kind of like a mini Ruby. So this is simply a tanky ranged Outlander unit. So it's a 6 mana ranged minion, so it's substantial from a mana investment, but it has 550 HP, and it does 100 damage, but it attacks slowly, once every 4 seconds. So that means it only does 25 DPS. Has a range of 6, which is not great. Same sort of range as Ruby's side cannons or a succubus, so ranged but not long range. And again, this is going to be available at tier 38 in the free pass, or tier 22 if you go for the season pass. And if we have a look at, well, one thing just to mention, only can hit ground, so it has a similar limitation to what Ruby has. And going back here, this is what the Siegebreaker looks like as a unit in the game, so we can see it's designed similar to how Ruby is. So those are the 2 new cards, the Magnetic Bombs and the Siegebreaker. Now we have a new skin. This one's a banger. This is called the Mecha Apep skin. And I love this. Okay, so this is going to be available at tier 38 in the season pass. And this one looks absolutely awesome. It's a new Apep skin. A lot of people playing Apep, of course. So we'll probably see a lot of this skin when people start unlocking it. Again, let me know in the comments what you think about this skin. Sometimes the skins that are launched, people don't like them too much. But I think this one is going to be very well received. It's a great looking skin. Okay, so that's the cards and the skin. Now, the other thing we need to look at are the balance updates. Some people think that these are the most important part of the patches. And as always, we're going to look at the buffs, the rebalances where things are changed in different sort of ways, multiple ways, and the nerfs. Now, you may be waiting with bated breath to see if the cards you're using are going to be nerfed, if the cards you're using are going to be buffed, if things you struggle against or you hate in the meta are going to be nerfed. Let's find out together. Okay, so the first buff we have is the Chief Icebreaker Bolt. This is just a small damage buff from 100 to 120, trying to make him more relevant. So remember, he does the freeze on his first attack per minion, and he does true damage, so he attacks through that freeze. Next up, we have the Dormant Defenders. Now, the Dormant Defenders are going to gain Arcane Spheres. So the Arcane Spheres are what you see from the Arcane Ring spell, but you're only going to get 2 of them. So they will gain 2 Arcane Spheres each when they are awakened. Remember, they start as buildings, and then when you hit Mana Surge at 6 mana, they become awakened. So the Arcane Sphere does 30 damage each, so a nice little buff there for the Dormant Defenders. Right, next up we have Korgoth. So this is more of a bug fix, but I think it's important to include here in the balance changes because this is quite an important unit within the current expansion, and I didn't want it to kind of get overlooked as just a side note in the bug changes. So Korgoth previously wasn't doing the damage he should have done. He should have done 2 lots of 150 damage. Remember, he throws his hammer, his Doom Hammer. That should do 150, and then when he pulls it and does the pullback, that should also do 150. Previously, it was doing 2 times 75. Now it's 2 times 150. So he should trade a lot better, and of course, he should kill more, which will trigger his Invoke more. Remember, Invoke, you can only do it once per attack, and the Invoke will be giving you more value on your Voidborn cards in your deck. So hopefully Korgoth will be in a better place now. Remember, you have to use his seal spell a couple of times before you can get him there. The Seal of Korgoth, sorry. Couldn't remember that obvious name. So we'll see how he works out. Next up, Lash of Armoon. So the Lash of Armoon is the spell of the Armoon attack where it comes down and does a couple of attacks. So it's been changed where you can no longer damage or stun the actual unit that comes down. So previously when your opponent used this, you could kind of mitigate the damage by DPSing it down really quickly, stunning it. You can no longer do that. You can still aggro it like a normal minion, a normal aggro, so you can potentially react to it, but it's going to be more difficult. And the Lash of Armoon shouldn't be so counterable. So there's a buff there for the Lash of Armoon. Now we have Morgul, the Swarmer King. Morgul hasn't seen too much love. Used to be a 4 mana card. When you went to a 5 mana card, really kind of fell out of people's consciousness. But he's getting a small health increase from 250 to 300. Should help him do better out there on the battlefield. Now we have a change to TAS. So the way TAS works, the way its Hellfire works, isn't changing at all. All that's happening is you get a couple of Nats summoned with it. So you'll have a building with a couple of Monitor Nats supporting it. So you will actually be able to use it slightly differently to how you used it before to get some more value out of it, even if it's just sitting there not hellfiring. And then we have one of the newer cards, Taluk the Vessel. Haven't really seen Taluk around too much. Remember, he's one of the newer minions. He does double damage to stuff that's poisoned or stunned. He's getting a health increase from 200 to 250, so hopefully that'll give him a bit more staying power on the field, and maybe we'll see some more of Taluk. He also has the special ability that he can be counted as a Slitherbound for a sacrifice mechanic, but doesn't actually disappear, doesn't get sacrificed. And also, one thing just to mention on Taluk is he has a new visual effect, so when he does his double damage attack, it will show visually to you. Right, next up, Zeppelin Bomber. Here we have a health increase from 70 to 85. So, of course, the Zeppelin Bomber does a lot of value dropping its bombs, but it is susceptible. But it's not going to be quite susceptible to the range damage now. They're going to take a little bit longer to DPS it down, potentially allowing it to get some more bombs out and get some more value. Okay, next one. Okay, City Watch. This is going to be a big one. So we're into the rebalances here where things are being changed in multiple ways. City Watch, of course, has been everywhere this season. Even after getting hotfixed, it's still monstrous. So what's going to be changed is, instead of having to be behind on XP to trigger the extra Legionnaires, it is being changed to Empyrean Army. So that means it's being changed from a trigger that may or may not happen within a match to a trigger that will or won't happen within deck building. So basically, if you have Empyrean Army, which is 5 unique Empyrean cards in your deck, this is going to be always activated. So you're having a bit of a deck building restriction, but if you do use it, it's always going to be activated, which I'm not fully happy with. I feel like it's still going to be OP. It's just going to be OP in different kind of decks. You'll probably see people playing Apep, but more of an Empyrean-based Apep to get this. But we'll see what happens. I've spoken to the devs about that, and they're going to be watching how this performs. Does it have a particularly high win rate in all sorts of decks? Is it going to be limited to sort of only specific decks where it's getting a lot of value? But I'm worried about this. We'll see how it works out. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is this a good change? Is it better than it was before? Is it still going to be a problem? Let me know. Okay, what do we have next in the rebalance? Now we have a change to Kurnath. So this is Kurnath Crystalback. Remember, he's the guy when somebody uses a spell, he will trigger one of his crystals on his back and do 100 damage to the closest 3 enemy units. So he's getting a few changes here. So firstly, mana cost going down from 5 to 4. That's good. He can now be drawn in an Apep deck from perk 3, if that's your flavor of the month. But his health is going down from 400 to 300. So that's the same as Morgul now. And the range of his effect is going down from 18 to 16. Now, interestingly, if there is something in range for him to attack with his ability, the crystals on his back will glow. So there's a little visual indication there if you're paying attention to. If you're wondering, is this in range? Is that not in range? You get a visual indication now. And the spells in your hand will also have a positive buff indicator when he's got at least 1 charge. So you'll have a visual way of seeing if things are within range, and you'll have a visual way of telling if he's still got crystals left. Remember, you can look at his back to see if there's any crystals left. That's a cool little thing that a lot of people don't really notice. But yeah, he starts with those crystals, and they get consumed, and eventually they go. Right, next up, what do we have? Netherstep. Netherstep, kind of a niche card. Don't see it too much, only in very specific ones. A little bit of a change here. I don't know if it's going to change much, but the Voidborn Wound is being removed. So it won't have that anymore. You won't be able to get it cheaper. But it will invoke on play. So what does that mean? Well, we've seen with Korgoth, the invoke is where he's going to be replacing the Voidborn card in your hand with a 1 more expensive Voidborn card, but it's retaining the previous mana cost. So a 4 mana Voidborn card is going to be replaced by a 5 mana Voidborn card, but still only costs 4 mana. So the Netherstep, it's giving you extra value in the form of that kind of additional mana value, but it's also going to have that RNG factor into it. You don't know what it's going to be replaced with, the card in your hand from the invoke. So still the same Netherstep where it jumps everything towards the Master Tower, but slightly different to the value that it gives you. Right, next up, Rimagal's Breath. So I put this down as a rebalance because the duration going up from 3 seconds to 5 seconds changes a couple of things. So the longer duration means that the units are more likely to get frozen. You have to stay in there, I think, for 3 seconds for a unit to get frozen. If it's lasting for longer, you've got more chance of freezing enemy units. So that's kind of a little buff, but also it's doing the same damage over a longer period. So it's kind of DPS is reduced. So it's not going to kill things as quickly. Things are going to be able to move through it with taking less damage. So that's also kind of a bit of a nerf. So probably overall, maybe a little bit more of a nerf than a buff, but definitely a rebalance. And we'll see how Rimagal's Breath drops onto the field. Right, next up is it's nerf time. I'm excited about this next one. A lot of people won't be, because a lot of people play Accursed decks. A lot of people play Coax-based Accursed decks. Now, Coax, remember, this is the guy that hypnotizes and when gets to Accursed Ascension, or at least previously, would generate skeletons from everything that he killed. Not anymore. So he's going to have a health reduction from 350 to 300. Wheel of Doom will kill him. Okay, good. We like that change. And the Accursed Ascension effect has been removed. So that's kind of huge. Previously, if people played Coax, multiple Coaxes, it was so difficult to push into them, especially in the late game. Not only were your units getting hypnotized and killing everything, but also everything that it killed was generating skeletons, so your horde was just coming back to haunt you. So this is I think this is a a huge nerf to Cokes. A huge nerf. We may see him drop completely out of people's consciousness in a curse decks. We might see him in other ones. We might not see him at all. I don't know, but this is a card that's been really problematic. Remember, it was even stronger when it started. It can be really, really frustrating to play into at late game. But yeah, we'll see what people think about that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot less Cokes. Right, next nerf. Small nerf to the Daggerfall, just removing the Slitherbind. So Daggerfall was kind of getting too much value. Remember, it only does for 3 mana, because it had some balance changes a while ago. For 3 mana, it only does 50 damage. But the Slitherbind was, especially within Slither decks, with the all sorts of sacrifice mechanics, was getting too much value from it. So Daggerfall has been had the Slitherbind removed. So it's just simply a spell that does damage now. The Slitherbind, of course, just to clarify, is when it attaches a Slither bound to another one of your cards. Your Slither cards. Right, nerf. Next one, Sanctum. Sanctum of the Cleansing Fire, one of the latest cards from the previous season. I can't remember a season where both cards have been quite so impactful in the meta. City Watch and Sanctum have been huge. City Watch specifically. Sanctum, in my experience, not so much, but judging by people's voicing their opinions within the game and on Steam and stuff like that, a lot of people have had a lot of issues with Sanctum, people playing a lot of it, especially in duos, especially with Ardera Cheese. So it's going to get a small nerf where it's going to start unactivated. And that refers to the every 7 seconds it triggers. So instead of triggering immediately and then every 7 seconds afterwards, you'll have to wait 7 seconds to get its first trigger from a minion getting damaged. So that means you can't just hold it and then wait for your minion just about to take damage and then throw it down, take your opponent by surprise and get that immediate holy fire. Imperial Army effect is still there, so you can get the immediate buff, the immediate holy fire on the ground beneath the closest minion. But remember, that's the closest minion, not the way that the other trigger happens, which is the minion taking damage. So a small change there to Sanctum, but I think it's going to be, you're going to be able to play around it more because you're not going to get taken by surprise quite so much. And also because it's not getting that first trigger at the start, it's going to give you there's going to be one less overall trigger. So I think that's a healthy change. Is it going to be enough? We'll find out. Right, next up, Vulture Prime. So Vulture Prime has always been strong, then Marked got buffed, and it became even stronger. Remember, it used to always be used in the combination with it and the Bazooka Scrat. The Bazooka Scrat was changed to no longer get triggered by the Marked, but then the Vulture Prime, even on its own, without that interaction, was very, very strong. So they're removing the tech trigger. That means you can't give it a shield. Previously, 25 tech gave it a shield. That's not going to happen anymore. So its attack, its damage, everything like that is the same, but it won't have that shield to protect itself. So it won't trade quite so well. It'll be more susceptible to spells. Next up, and I believe this may be the final balance change, is the Wall. So I think the devs have felt the Wall was a bit too strong with its ability to stall. So for 2 mana, you're going to get a 325 HP Wall instead of 400. Remember, the Wall does do melee reflection damage of 50%, 50% counter damage. So the Wall is not going to be quite so strong. So 2 mana card getting nerfed, always going to be a bit of a nerf. So Apep from his perk 1, the Wall is not going to be quite so valuable. Okay, so those are the balance changes. So hopefully you're happy with how they are. Let me know in the comments what you think of the changes. Do you like the stuff that's being buffed? Do you like the stuff that's being nerfed? Is it killing your deck? Is it making your deck stronger? These are the questions that we always need to look at when we're looking at the balance changes. Now, of course, as always, we've got some bug fixes. Quickly through these. The AFK bot in the tutorial has been disabled. That's just going to be annoying for people, so that's been removed. The health bar was too low on the Legionnaire's body. Remember, they got a visual model upgrade. That's been fixed. Laylail no longer reflects while stunned or frozen. I think that's quite a big change. You could say that's a nerf, but it's here as a bug fix. I guess that means she was never supposed to do that, but that's quite important. You can stun her, and then your range can kill her like a sniper or whatever, and your sniper won't necessarily die like it would previously. Azog can no longer dash, his shadow dash, when frozen. Rimagal no longer freezes 0 mana minion cards. Fix the cheese date units glowing white, so if you're playing cheese date or if you're just concerned about cheese date in general, you will no longer have to wear your sunglasses. Fix the bounce briefling as being massive ice cubes when frozen. Blastmancer can no longer perform Soul Detonate during Summoning Sickness. Remember, Summoning Sickness is where the units take a small period of time to activate after you play them. So the Blastmancer just having a little change there, so you can't just throw it down and immediately get, boom, that Soul Detonate. Now, Prowler can no longer leap to Friendly Tower when hypnotized. Didn't even know that's a thing. Prowler is my nemesis, but it's good to know that that can't happen anymore. The Sanctum hologram no longer has VFX. So the hologram, I think, is when you're hovering it, deciding where to play it. I think the VFX kind of made it a little crazy. Fixed Slithering Summons yellow glow. So that's just the glow of the card in your hand, I think, indicating whether it's active or not. Fixed ability cards and Simulacrum interactions. That's quite a big one. So Simulacrum, of course, copies a non-mythic minion card from your opponent, which some people play it straight, other people get it from Apep, but what often happened is the Simulacrum would grab a unit that had an ability like Azog, and then all hell would break loose. You'd end up with cards in your deck that you didn't have to start with. You'd have a Simulacrum, you'd have a card from your opponent. It was nonsense. That's been fixed now, so Simulacrum interactions should be fixed and should be much, much better than before. Nice change. Okay. That's it. We got through it. So just a reminder, this is Techsplosion. This is the third and final update in the Torment expansion. We've got it dropping on the 8th of December, Thursday. That is, if you're watching this live here on YouTube. Tomorrow, we're going to have the new cards, Magnetic Bombs and the Siegebreaker Mark 1. We've got the Mecha Apep, the brand new, awesome-looking skin. We've got all of those balance changes and, of course, all of those bug fixes. I'm looking forward to checking out the new stuff, the cards, the skin for sure. Definitely look out for that. And also looking to build around the balance changes, see how that changes up with the meta. And just a reminder, at the end of the season, don't forget to claim your Tri-Team Tourney rewards, the top left in the lobby, and your Guild Conquest rewards before the season ends, because I think if you don't, you're going to lose them. Okay, and that should be pretty much it for me here in the fish tank. Thanks for joining me. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. And of course, let me know in the comments what you think about these changes. Always nice to have a discussion with you guys, thinking about what's changed. Do we like it? Do we hate it? And then, of course, we can revisit those comments after Thursday and see if what we think, based on what we see on paper, has come true on what we see on the battlefield. Thank you so much for joining me here in the fish tank. As mentioned, I'm Fish, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.